Hello everyone. This video presents a notable event that happened on each day from the past week in history. On October 26, 1979, Kim Jae-kyu, the head of the South Korean CIA, assassinated the country's president, Park Chung-hee. The president died on the spot of gunshot wounds to the chest and head. One pervasive conspiracy theory regarding the assassination of U.S. President John F. Kennedy is that the American CIA was somehow involved. While such theories are usually treated as forays into fiction, the assassination of the South Korean president by his own CIA show that the idea might not be all that far-fetched. Director Kim used a Walter PPK to shoot his president, but the gun jammed, and the assassin then used a Smith & Wesson .38 revolver to finish the job. Kim and his supporters were later arrested and executed after being tortured. Do you think the US CIA had anything to do with JFK's assassination? If not, who was really responsible? On October 27, 1962, U.S. Air Force Major Rudolph Anderson was shot down and killed while flying his U-2 spy plane over Cuba. The Cuban Missile Crisis of October 1962 was a face-off between the U.S. and the USSR over the Soviets stationing nuclear missiles in Cuba close to the American mainland. After 2 weeks of negotiations and nearly causing a nuclear war, national leaders reached a deal where the Soviets would remove nukes from Cuba and the U.S. would remove nuclear missiles from Turkey and possibly Italy. Despite debate about taking drastic military action and nearly disastrous confrontations between U.S. and Soviet forces, the crisis was resolved in a mutually agreeable manner, not the victory for the U.S. portrayed by the American government and press. As a question for my students and subscribers, who do you think won the Cuban Missile Crisis? On October 28, 2001, the indie movie Donnie Darko was released. We find the question, "Why are you wearing that stupid bunny suit?" asked by Donnie to the large demonic rabbit to be the best line in the film. Here are some of our favorite memorable lines from other films. "Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn." Rhett Butler in Gone with the Wind, 1939. "What we've got here is failure to communicate." The Captain in Cool Hand Luke, 1967. "A man's got to know his limitations." Dirty Harry Callahan in Magnum Force, 1973. "Here's Johnny." Deranged Jack Torrance in The Shining, 1980. "I'll be back." The Terminator in The Terminator, 1984. "Oh my God!" Arnold in Troll 2, 1990. It must be seen to appreciate it. "You Can't Handle the Truth." Colonel Nathan Jessup, A Few Good Men, 1992. On October 29, 2015, China announced the end of its one-child policy that had been in effect since 1979, limiting couples to one child in an effort to curb population growth. Fears of what seemed to be inevitable overpopulation caused China's leaders to raise the age for marriage and to encourage couples to delay having children, limiting the number of children they had and spacing out pregnancies. Finally, the draconian edict of one child per couple was put into effect, but with many exceptions. In 2015, the policy became a two-child policy, and in 2021, the government changed the plan again to 3 children per couple. While the Chinese government declared the program a success, critics claimed the policy was a violation of human rights. Parents engaged in abortion of female fetuses and infanticide or abandonment of female babies. On October 30th, 1961, former Soviet dictator Joseph Stalin suffered the indignity of having his body removed from a place of honor in Lenin's tomb and parked in a regular grave with a plain granite marker. Here are some other indignities suffered by the bodies of former national leaders after their deaths. Oliver Cromwell, Lord Protector of Britain, was dug up in 1661, 3 years after his death, to be tried and executed, including beheading. Napoleon Bonaparte, Emperor of the French, died in exile in 1821, allegedly his removed and stolen member, then making a convoluted passage from owner to owner. Benito Mussolini, dictator of Italy, was caught and executed by partisans in 1945, and his body strung up upside down to be spit on, kicked, punched, shot, and mocked by onlookers. Pol Pot, Cambodian dictator, was burned in a rubbish fire after his 1998 death. On October 31st, 1973, 3 Provisional Irish Republican Army members held prisoner in Dublin, Ireland, were busted out of prison in a manner befitting an action movie. The Provisional IRA was a group attempting to force a unification of Northern Ireland with the rest of the island by using violence as a main method of persuasion. The prisoners had been convicted and sentenced to prison for offenses against the state. An aborted plan to break out the prisoners by blowing a hole in the prison wall was replaced by an even more spectacular plan of using a helicopter to fly the men out of jail. A chartered helicopter was hijacked by armed IRA soldiers and landed in the prison exercise yard where the 3 convicts were picked up and spirited away. The remaining IRA prisoners were moved to a more secure prison with wires erected overhead to prevent further helicopter escapes. On November 1st, 1982, Honda Motor Company of Japan started making cars in the United States. The gasoline shortages of 1973 and 1979 pushed American drivers into the seats of imported cars that got better gas mileage than American land yachts and with better quality for good measure. Honda took advantage of this trend by opening a manufacturing plant in Marysville, Ohio, starting with their Civic subcompact car. Honda's American growth has been spectacular, and now 4 decades later, 2/3 of their vehicles are built in the U.S. at a total of 12 automotive plants that employ 22,000 Americans. The Marysville motorcycle plant opened in 1979 originally made motorcycles, which was the core of Honda's business for many years, before branching out into automobiles. Honda has now produced over 30 million cars in the U.S. As a question for my students and subscribers, which event from this past week in history would you most like to learn more about? Please let me know in the comment section below this video. If you liked this video and would like to receive notification of new videos, please feel welcome to subscribe to History and Headlines and become one of our patrons. Your viewership is much appreciated. For image, audio, and other credits and attributions for components of the individual videos in this compilation, please see the descriptions of their respective videos, which are linked to in this video's description.